Potential New York Knicks trade targets have just been revealed as the Knicks have been linked to both Walker Kessler and Jonas Valanciunas of the Utah Jazz and Washington Wizards, two teams that are tanking, while many other teams look to be getting ready to trade some key veterans away. And we're going to break this down as the Knicks will be looking into many different players. So what's up, guys? Welcome back to Knicks Digest. It's Chris here, and we're going to jump right into the video as usual. But also, guys, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a ton. We're on that push to 10K. We're getting close. If you like the content, please subscribe and leave a comment down below if you want to see the Knicks make a trade this season. But let's jump into it, guys. The New York Knicks, obviously, when trade season comes around, Leon Rose is typically active. Now, the Knicks have made a bunch of trades recently with Mikal Bridges and Karl-Anthony Towns, and because of that, they don't have the most assets left to make a trade. However, they have been linked to multiple names, including both, specifically, Walker Kessler, someone who the Knicks have had interest in for a while now, along with Jonas Valanciunas, someone who the second the Wizards signed him, everyone kind of knew that he would get moved. So we're going to see what Leon Rose ends up doing here, but this was all broken down to us. Now, as Christopher Klein mentioned, New York remains a potential trade deadline buyer too, with big man targets like Jonas Valanciunas and Walker Kessler extremely popular in Knicks circles. There's always room to improve, and New York's front office proved its urgency this summer by trading for Cat and Mikal Bridges. Now, here's the thing. Yes, the Knicks are going to do their due diligence on these two guys, and I'll go into my personal feelings on them in a bit. But look, looking at this team, yeah, having center depth would be helpful, but it's not like it's a must-do. The Knicks are not going to force themselves into making a bad trade where they overpay for a guy like this. And that's because they still do have Mitchell Robinson and Precious Achiuwa on roster. I mean, Achiuwa is questionable for the first time all season tonight. So he'll be back soon, probably sometime by... I believe he won't play tonight. I believe that Precious Achiuwa's first game will be sometime over the weekend or the very beginning of next week. And also, what we're going to see is the Knicks probably show interest in Walker Kessler. I mean, they have that protected Wizards pick. That's the last first-round pick that they have to trade, really. And it wouldn't be shocking to see them move that. I mean, it's just going to keep deferring, most likely. And the Knicks want to build a contender and build as good of a team as possible. Mitchell Robinson will be on the Knicks for the rest of this season, if you ask me. And after that, probably next season, we'll see them move him when he's an expiring deal. So the Knicks don't have to just not repay him, because the Knicks are not going to sign Robinson to another contract extension. Karl-Anthony Towns is playing so well at the center position. Mitch is not going to be getting paid starter money by the New York Knicks. Another team might pay him. And also the Knicks will have to focus on paying guys like Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges in the 2026 offseason. So there's kind of less room to focus on Mitchell Robinson. So the Knicks will be trading Mitchell Robinson, just probably not this season. Now, they might. It's always possible they do, but there's not too many guys worth trading Robinson for. I mean, Walker Kessler makes like no money. He makes around $3 million this season. So if the Knicks want to make a move, I think the smartest move to trade for a guy like Walker Kessler is to go out there and trade Precious Achiuwa, that Wizards first-round pick, and if you have to add a few second-rounders to get the deal done, it's a good trade. I mean, you then have a ton of centers on your roster, like Jericho Sims and Ariel Hukporti also there, so maybe you do something with Sims, like you move him somewhere, potentially. But that's the thing. The Knicks have a ton of big men on this team. I mean, you could even... I guess you could kind of package Jericho Sims and Matt Ryan and give a first-round pick if maybe the Jazz would prefer that, and then the Knicks still free up a bit of money to work with. You sign Landry Shamet, and then you go out there and you... Maybe we'll have money for someone else still, but it still cuts it kind of close. The Knicks need to cut a little bit of money if they make a trade so they can get their roster to 15 guys. Right now, it's at 14. It's going to stay at 14, and that's the incentive to making a trade. If you trade Precious for someone like a Kessler who makes $3 million, then you have room to sign two guys, or you have room to sign another guy, excuse me. Like, well, they'll waive Matt Ryan. They'll put him on a two-way contract. They'll waive Boo Buie. He'll just go to the G League or something. They'll sign Landry Shamet, and then they'll have 14, and they'll have room to sign another guy, which would probably, at this point, be TJ Warren. So that is kind of a game plan I could see them doing. But you do have an abundance of centers then, and maybe you move Cat to the 4 to solve that and have Kessler or Mitch start, but Cat's been so good at the 5. There's a lot of things, essentially, what I'm saying is the New York Knicks can do. they have some room to make some interesting moves, and we're going to see what happens. I mean, Kessler's had an awesome season on an awful Jazz team. He's putting up 11 points and 10.5 rebounds per game. He's shooting 74% from the field. Very good defensive box plus minus. Good value over replacement player already. I mean, Walker Kessler is just an awesome player. Only fouls 2 times a game for a guy who's blocking 3 shots. I mean, Kessler's just an awesome player. I'd love for the Knicks to trade for him. He would be a nice little future plan to have after Mitchell Robinson when you need a rim protector. It's just a matter of if Danny Ainge is going to upcharge the Knicks for him, which you have to imagine he will. So it's going to be hard for the Knicks to acquire Kessler. Like, they're definitely going to have to give that Wizards pick. And then it comes down to who else they're going to trade. I'd imagine Precious, but it could be, as I said, Jericho Sims and Matt Ryan. And then you probably have to throw some second rounders also. A trade that I would do, mind you. Like, I'm not saying I wouldn't do it. I'm just saying then you have 50,000 centers on your team. So you might want to have to figure something out there, because then Kessler and Mitch can't play together. So you'd have to start one of them or fully bench one of them, and that doesn't make sense. So that's kind of the problem with trading for a Walker Kessler. And I mean, it kind of is the same for Jonas Valanciunas, because he's a big man. He's a pure center. There's no way around it. It's just he sucks at defense and is a good offensive player. Now, Valanciunas is someone the Knicks had interest in essentially the second that the Wizards signed him. The Knicks had interest in Valanciunas in the offseason and were interested in signing him before he took that deal with the Wizards, because the Knicks didn't really have any money. He kind of can replace Hartenstein with the playmaking ability that he has, but his defense is terrible. As you can see, his defensive box plus minus is in the negatives, but he's putting up 12 points and 8 rebounds per game with 2 assists and shooting 58% from the field. He's a good offensive center. It's just when you have an offensive center like Karl Anthony Towns, you really don't need another offensive center. What you need is a guy to play defense, and at this point, you're going to have Mitchell Robinson come back, but there's obviously fear with his health. Tom Thibodeau's a big fan of Mitchell Robinson, but there's just a lot to look at when it comes down to this. And there's also a lot of teams that have interest in making trades. I mean, as we know now, Kessler and Valanciunas are huge options for the Knicks, but there's also the fact that the Jazz and Trailblazers are viewed as sellers in the Western Conference heading towards trade season. Trade season does start on December 15th, so we're literally 10 days out from it being trade season, because that's when players who signed over the offseason can be traded off their team. Now, Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton, Robert Williams, Colin Sexton, Walker Kessler, as we know, John Collins, and Jordan Clarkson can all be available for the right price. Now, John Collins, the Knicks won't trade for. There's no rhyme or reason to trading for him, even though he's having a good season. So shout out John Collins for that. And guys like Robert Williams, he's the real option here. DeAndre Ayton makes too much money where you can't work it out. Same with Jeremy Grant. Also, Jeremy Grant doesn't make much sense on the Knicks. Same for Jordan Clarkson, makes no sense on the Knicks. The guy here to look at that we haven't already talked about is certainly Robert Williams. He's definitely the guy who you kind of get an eye for and see, all right, he'd be an interesting player to have on the team. And this season, and he's not playing the most minutes, he's putting up 9.5 points with 6 rebounds, 1.5 assists, getting 2 blocks and a steal per game. So he's got 3 stocks going for him. He shoots 71% from the field. Awesome defensive box plus minus. Robert Williams is having a phenomenal season this year. He doesn't foul. Now, he plays somewhat limited minutes, and the 3-point percentage I'm going to ignore because he's barely shot any threes this year, to where he's like 1 for 2 or 2 for 4. Like, it's that much of 50%. So it's like he wouldn't shoot threes on the Knicks regardless. Tibbs would not let him. So it becomes this thing of, if you want this undersized center, then it kind of works, especially because he's been very good and the money works, where maybe if you wanted to move Mitchell Robinson for him, you could, but there's no sense to that because Mitchell Robinson's taller, better, and they're both injury prone anyway, to where I don't really see a point in moving for a guy like a Robert Williams, as I almost die. But also in the Eastern Conference, you have teams like the Chicago Bulls, the Brooklyn Nets, and the Washington Wizards. Now, again, we've talked about Jonas Valanciunas, who is the most real option for this, but we're never going to stop seeing people linked to the New York Knicks. That's just how it goes, being a Knicks fan, and Vucevic has been linked. Nikola Vucevic has been linked to the New York Knicks, and he's honestly had a good season. I mean, he's putting up 21 points and 10 rebounds per game with 3 assists. His defense is atrocious. Like, it's really bad. Like, it's really, really bad. But he does shoot 58% and 47% from 3. He's having an awesome season that kind of is reminiscent of a worse version of Karl Anthony Towns. We know Thibodeau likes to kind of have his centers match each other, but not in this way where neither of them can play defense. So, essentially what I'm saying is, the Knicks aren't trading for Vooch. You'd have to trade Mitchell Robinson and Precious Achiuwa to make the money work, and that is a god-awful trade unless the Bulls are literally giving you a first-round pick. That's the only situation. I mean, we're looking at teams that want to capture the flag also. We're looking at teams like the Jazz, the Trailblazers, the Bulls, the Wizards, the Nets, all teams that are trying to get to the top of the draft lottery so they could try to win the Cooper Flag honor of picking first overall, getting Flag on their team. A guy who's essentially a can't-miss prospect. Can't-miss prospects usually come around every other year. We saw Wemby, and then we saw no one, and then we saw Cooper Flag, and the year before Wemby. Who was the first overall pick in... Wemby was what, 2023? Yeah. Who the hell was the first overall pick in 2022? I'm not gonna lie, it is like 1 p.m., but I slept till like the 12. I know you guys are commenting. Someone's commenting down below. This guy has no idea what he's talking about. He can't say the 2022 first overall pick, and it's really killing me right now. Yo, who is... Whatever. It doesn't matter. Essentially, it's every other year. If I can't remember who it is, unless I'm really... It was Paulo. I was about to say it must be someone that's not that good. It was Paulo. Wow. Okay, we're going to push past that. But Paulo wasn't a can't-miss prospect. He wasn't even supposed to go first overall. It was supposed to be Jabari Smith Jr., so my point stands. But look, essentially, we're looking at the Knicks be named for everyone under the sun. And you see some guys, like, you see these Eastern Conference teams. The Bulls can't make a trade with the Knicks because their one center makes too much money, and the same goes for the Brooklyn Nets. And, I mean, the Nets, like, it's Claxton who's on the market, but Claxton's, first of all, having kind of a disappointing season in general, only putting up 9 and 7.5 with 1 block per game. But at the same time, the man makes $27 million. There's just no way around it. Both guys, like Claxton, making this much money, and Vucevic, it's impossible for the Knicks to make trades for them, so there's someone you can ignore. It really comes down to Walker Kessler or Jonas Valanciunas, and I don't think the Knicks would move for Valanciunas because the lack of defense is a problem enough as it is. They're kind of waiting on Mitchell Robinson and Precious Achiuwa, hoping that'll fix the rim protection. You're not going to move for Valanciunas. Guys, let me know what you think down below. Comment who you want to see the Knicks trade for, if anyone, or if you want to see... Or if you want to see the Knicks stand still. I can't talk. I can't think. I'm a train wreck right now, guys. So I'm going to catch y'all on the next one. Have a great day and go Knicks.